With my wedding just 2 weeks away, I uncovered my fiancé's shocking secret about helping her sister hide an affair, and now I'm panicking about whether to go through with it. My wedding is happening in 14 days, and I'm completely panicked. I desperately need to share this burden, because I feel like I'm losing my mind. My fiancée Sarah and I have been together for roughly 6 years, engaged for one. Our ceremony is planned for just 2 weeks from now, and tonight I witnessed something that makes me believe I'm about to make the most catastrophic decision of my existence. This evening, Sarah and I had a rare chance to unwind at home. Sarah was in the kitchen preparing our meal, while I was outside in the yard working on one of my hobby projects. Naturally, when you're doing strenuous work, you get parched and need to come inside for refreshment. That's when I spotted Sarah at the counter fixing dinner and chatting on speaker. I immediately recognized the voice as my brother-in-law Marty. Here's where my mind gets completely scrambled. Marty inquired about Sarah's sister Evelyn's location since he'd been attempting to reach her, and she wasn't responding to messages. I heard Sarah tell him she had just departed and should arrive home within 30 minutes. It's worth mentioning that Evelyn is Marty's spouse of 5 years. I must confess that I didn't instantly process what she had just stated because I entered the kitchen and grabbed a cup and asked Sarah what that conversation was about. She replied that Marty was searching for Evie. I observed her texting and questioned what she was doing. She said she was messaging Evie that Marty had been looking for her. I poured myself a beverage, sat down, took a sip, and then finally my mind began functioning. First, I heard Sarah inform Marty that Evelyn was present. Evelyn was not present, and the last time we encountered her was yesterday when she visited to work on some final wedding decoration tasks with Sarah. Second, why is she texting Evelyn and anticipating a reply when I clearly heard Marty say that Evelyn wasn't responding to her messages? Finally, why would she tell Marty that Evelyn should return in 30 minutes unless she either knows her location or she is currently in front of me messaging her to tell her to hurry home quickly? The only conclusion I reached is that Sarah is deceiving Marty about her sister's location and is probably alerting Evie that Marty will expect her home in 30 minutes. I then spent probably the following 5 hours creating various explanations for this conduct, some reasonable, some absolutely terrible, and replaying them in my mind. I desperately wanted to question Sarah about this, but simultaneously, if what I suspect is happening, then I doubted I'd receive an honest response. This brings me to about an hour ago. I awoke around 1 a.m. to use the restroom, and I couldn't resist the impulse to examine Sarah's phone. We both know each other's passcodes, so this wasn't a challenging task. I grabbed the phone, retreated to the bathroom, unlocked it, and yes, it was precisely what I feared and probably what most of you anticipated. Sarah's sister Evelyn has been conducting an affair for approximately 6 months with a colleague, and Sarah has been assisting Evelyn in concealing it for nearly that entire duration. There are literally hundreds of messages between them discussing it, discussing the colleague, discussing intimate matters, really humiliating things about my brother-in-law, just content that makes my stomach turn. Here is my soon-to-be wife participating in all of it without hesitation. I captured some screenshots of the entire conversation, returned the phone to its location, then retreated to my home office to find myself here typing it all out on Reddit simply, so I can prevent the primal scream that wants to escape my mouth right now. I am totally 100% doomed, Reddit. I cannot wed Sarah. I just cannot do it. I can't conceive of any reasonable justification she could provide me about helping her sister in this affair and victimizing not only Marty, but their 2-year-old daughter as well. On the other hand, myself, my family, Sarah, and her family have all invested an enormous amount of money into a wedding that is scheduled to occur in around 2 weeks. There is no possibility we are recovering any of that money. On top of that, I feel like an absolute fool. How did I not recognize this woman was like this? And what am I going to do? I can't marry her. I absolutely cannot. However, I still want to. She's gorgeous and entertaining and caring, and I believed we had a promising future ahead of us. She's never done anything harmful to me, but I just can't view her the same now. It's like a large dark stain on an otherwise perfect picture. I just don't understand how I got this so wrong, and I'm absolutely dreading doing what I know I need to do. I feel like I want to be sick or destroy something. Edit. Guys, you don't need to persuade me to not marry Sarah. That's obvious. The wedding is cancelled. I'm just trying to determine my next moves and gather the courage to do it. There's an incredible amount of pressure on me from everyone's expectations, but I'm not going to collapse under it. I just am not looking forward to dealing with the consequences, and I'm more than a little furious that I'm in this predicament. Edit 2. It's 5 a.m. I have work in 3 hours, and I'm operating on a couple hours of sleep. I'm going to shower and head into work early to avoid Sarah and contemplate this. Thanks to the supportive people here, and a big dismissal to the jerks who keep saying I should discover whatever good reason my soon-to-be ex-fiancé had for this nonsense. Edit 3. I arrived at work around 7. No one was in the office, so I decided to start removing the bandage, and I contacted my brother. He lives in Australia, so he was still awake after having just put his children to bed. It was difficult breaking the news to him about this because I know he has spent a huge amount of money for flights for him and his family to come. But to his credit as an older brother, he didn't mention it once and just supported me. He made an excellent point too. He said you work in a job where you have to deal with liars and scammers day in and day out. I don't blame you for wanting to have somewhere to go where this isn't a concern. He was completely right about that, and I understand now why I am reacting so intensely to Sarah's participation in this deception. He also had a wonderful idea. He was going to take his family down to Florida to do some sightseeing and visit the parks. Well, now the kids will be accompanied by their uncle as well. It should be simple since we were going to honeymoon there as well, and we were planning on meeting them for a bit anyway. I'll just rebook everything to be closer to him and his family, and I'll offer Sarah's ticket to either my sister or another family member. I haven't had time to read everyone's comments, but I have answered a few. Right now I'm just sort of making myself ill by drinking cup after cup of coffee and trying to distract myself until the day gets far enough along where I can reach out to Marty. Edit 4. Just finished morning stand-up. My stomach is doing somersaults from drinking about 2 pots of coffee since I arrived here so early, and I absolutely cannot focus and concentrate. I feel like I can't accomplish anything really from my side until I inform Marty what I know, so I'm just going to take a sick day and drive over to his house and see if he's available. If not, I'll call him and track him down. Marty is a teacher who is on break right now, and Evelyn works a 9 to 5 like me, so odds are good this works out. Wish me luck, Reddit. Edit 5. Reached Marty's house a little after 10 a.m. He had just put his daughter down for a nap, and we had a long, frankly brutal conversation in the kitchen. Basically, he suspected this for a couple of months now, but Evelyn has been very effective at covering her tracks, obviously with the assistance of Sarah and a couple of their mutual friends. I unfortunately do not have all 6 months of text messages, just a couple dozen screenshots I sent to myself from Sarah's phone, but I gave him what I have and offered to help him however I could. I am a field analyst in the SIU department of a mid-sized insurer specializing in workers' compensation fraud, so I know a few things and a few people. Anyway, I am now working from my laptop and my almost brother-in-law's kitchen trying to salvage whatever I can. I'm going to have to talk to Sarah this evening and get the word out as quickly as I can to my friends and family now that I know I won't harm Marty. So far I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon, although I had a problem with the ticket because Sarah was flying under her maiden name and our carrier has a surname rule for name changes. Anyway, they did allow me to cancel and get a partial refund and rebook to my sister, who will be accompanying her 2 brothers and nieces to Florida in a couple of weeks. I'm holding off on canceling the venues until after I talk to Sarah, because I don't want to alert anyone until Marty gets his chance to confront Evelyn, but I will absolutely be letting my family and friends know this afternoon sometime and beg them to keep it quiet. I'm basically in a frenzy right now canceling stuff I can cancel, and I'm heading down to the bank in a few to open a new account and getting my bill pay sorted out. The finances, some people have mentioned them, but it should be pretty manageable. The mortgage isn't in my name since we were not married and I have the larger income, but Sarah did contribute about $20,000 versus my $60,000 towards the down payment. I'll have to probably pay her out that money and some portion of the mortgage payments for the last 16 months, but it could be worse. Update was provided as an edit in the same post. It's about 8:30 p.m. right now, and I'm writing this from my buddy's house. His name is Mark, and a former coworker of mine that is also in the same field of work. As I mentioned in a previous update, I work as a field analyst in the SIU department of a decent-sized insurance carrier. For people who don't know what that is, I'm basically a private detective. My job is to investigate what we think might be fraudulent claims in regards to workers' compensation. Anyway, as I kind of hinted at, Marty asked for my help in finding out who the other guy was that Evelyn was cheating on him with. All we had to go on was a name. Let's call him Jake. The first thing I did was not some major amount of sleuthing. It was basically just going through LinkedIn trying to find the guy through Evelyn's connections, but that brought up nothing, which I thought was strange. Marty had told me that Evelyn was supposed to go out for drinks tonight after work and that she said she wouldn't be home until around 9 or 10. He didn't have to tell me what he suspected since I pretty much understood right away. I told him that I would help him, but he needed to come with me. I then contacted my buddy Mark, explained the situation to him, and had him agree to meet us later in the day. The first thing we did was drive over to Marty's parents' house so that they could watch their granddaughter. I don't know what Marty told them as I waited in the car. After that, we went to Evelyn's place of work. It's one of those large commercial strip mall type centers with all of these nondescript offices in a row in a large non-gated car park. We drove around until we found Evelyn's car, and then I had Marty unlock it with a second set of keys. I then gave Marty a voice-activated recorder and a GPS tracker to place in the car. Once done with that, we left, parked a bit down the street, and waited for my friend to arrive and for Evelyn to leave the business. Mark shows up about 20 minutes later, hops in the car with us, and around an hour after that, Evelyn comes out of her office with 2 of her girlfriends and a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. They are obviously holding hands, and I'm like, damn, Evelyn, you're making it easy for me. I take a couple of pictures from the car and then wait for Evelyn to leave in hers, and I start tracking her. At first, I thought she might go right to a hotel or something, but she didn't. Instead, she drove to a reasonably nice bar and grill in a nice section of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she was getting out of her car and entering the establishment, and then found my own parking spot and went over the plan. First, we sent Mark in since no one knew him. He had basically two jobs. First, try to get any compromising pictures he could of Evelyn and Jake, and second, to be my alibi. Marty and I waited in the car for around 20 minutes until I got the first in a series of text messages from Mark. They were pictures of Evelyn and Jake making out in front of their two female coworkers. Marty's suspicions were right. They were helping Evelyn hide the affair from him. He was obviously very upset and angry. Evidently, one of the coworkers is married, and as a couple, they're good friends with Marty and Evelyn, both of them having toddlers around the same age. I asked Marty if that's enough for him, but he says he still really wants to know who this guy is. I try to tell him that we can find out later, but he's practically begging me at this point, so I tell him to wait, text Mark that I'm coming in, and then enter the bar myself. First thing I see is Evelyn and her crew laughing and drinking at one of those tall round tables near the front window. As I enter, I stop for a moment, pretend to be surprised, and then call out to Evelyn. "Hi, what are you doing here?" She's obviously shocked to see me, and everyone around her tenses up immediately. Evelyn quickly introduces me as her sister's fiancé and says that we are getting married in 2 weeks. There are a lot of congratulations from everyone. I thank them and then stick out my hand to the blonde guy and introduce myself with my full name, hoping that he'll respond in kind. He does, and I'm a bit taken aback. He's not named Jake. I introduce myself to everyone else and then tell Evelyn that I'm here to meet a coworker. I wave to Mark and then excuse myself. Once I get over to Mark, I tell him the guy's name and we both whip out our phones and go to work. It doesn't take long for us to find him. He's got social media profiles and a couple of court case judgments against him. Everything sort of falls into place when we find out that Jake is his middle name. At this point, I'm basically just grateful that Evelyn isn't cheating on Marty with 2 different coworkers. Turns out that Jake is 26, married, and has a 1-year-old daughter. This just keeps getting better. Anyway, I text Marty the guy's name, and I decide I want to push my luck and tell him to wait a few more minutes. Basically, I'm playing babysitter here at the bar. I'm totally visible to Evelyn and her crew. I can see out of the corner of my eye that no one is particularly happy about this, and my presence is really ruining the night. This is good. I let this go on for about 10 minutes, and then tell Marty to text Evelyn that he's spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. It doesn't take long after that until I catch Evelyn taking out her phone, showing it to Jake, and then everyone deciding to pack up. Evelyn comes over to me, says goodnight, and asks me if Sarah and I want to come over for dinner this weekend. I smile and say that sounds like a great idea and wish her and her coworkers a good night. Mark and I wait for them to leave, then pay our bill and hurry back to the waiting Marty. There's a bit of hesitation here because we don't know exactly what Evelyn was going to do. Like I had assumed, she might have already booked a hotel room and was heading there, which would have made everything a lot more complicated and limited what I could do. But it turns out that tonight was probably meant to be just drinks at the bar, and it wasn't until Marty decided to spend the night at his parents' that it turned into something more. Evelyn made a beeline for home, and we followed behind her way out of sight and parked down the street. It didn't take long after that until another car pulled into Marty's driveway, and we saw Jake get out, go up to the door, knock, and be greeted by Evelyn. They went inside together. Now, at this point, it's about 7:30, and I have my own stuff to do tonight, and I think that as a friend, I've done pretty much all I can do for Marty, and he can handle the rest himself. I mean, I feel bad for the guy definitely, but I don't want to get any more involved in this drama than I already am, and being the wingman for him while he confronts his cheating wife is a bit much for me considering my situation. Marty says it's fine, that he'll do the rest of it himself. Guess he's more of a man than you thought, Evelyn. He goes to Evelyn's car, retrieves my gear, and we bid each other goodbye. That was almost 2 hours ago. I did get one text message from Marty saying it was done, and he was going to his parents' house for real this time, but my phone hasn't been blowing up, so I don't know what's been going on with Evelyn, and I've been at Mark's since then. I think that basically concludes my part in Marty's story. If he was smart and listened to my advice, he was recording with his phone when he entered the house. I'll find out later. Anyway, my biggest priority now is to head home and tell Sarah that the wedding is off. She's almost 100% going to take it badly. There's no way she won't. But like I said, I just can't get married to her right now. I don't know what the future holds for us, or if we will be done with each other or not, but definitely, we are not getting married anytime soon. Also, for people who keep saying, why didn't you talk to her first? Why didn't you confront her? I have to say, are you people stupid? She stone cold lied in front of me to her brother-in-law that she has known for about 10 years and purportedly thinks is a really great husband and father. Maybe you are naive enough to think that someone can lie that coldly to someone they are supposed to care about and then tell you the truth, but I'm not wired that way. Until that moment, I never had cause to ever second-guess Sarah or not trust her, but She was literally untrustworthy in front of my face, and I'm supposed to let it slide or expect her to be honest with me. I guess you don't know what it's like to have your entire view of someone shift in an instant. It's disorienting and frankly a bit panic-inducing. I'm actually impressed I kept my head and followed my instincts instead of pressing her right away, because it led me to the truth. It would have been ridiculously easy for her to lie to me and then delete those text messages, and if she had done that, then I would never have read the horrible things she said, never seen how she can be so duplicitous and two-faced, and never realized how little I actually knew about her. I'm going home to talk to Sarah. I'll update later to let everyone know what the final verdict is. Don't expect it to be a good one. Here is another update for you guys. I guess there's a lot to go over and so much has happened. Most of it, if I'm honest, hasn't been that great. Well, it's actually been downright terrible, but I'll get to that. First off, I left Mark's house pretty late that night. Sarah already knew I was out discussing business with him, although she had no idea that the business was actually her sister's affair. But still, it was getting to an unreasonable hour, mostly because I was trying to get up the nerve to go home and face her. After about 2 or 3 pep talks from Mark, I finally got off my rear and texted Sarah I was coming home and left in my car. As I said in the last update, I was pretty surprised when I got there because when I walked into the house, Evelyn was crying on the couch with Sarah. I hadn't seen Evelyn's car in the driveway when I came home, so this was probably the last thing I was expecting. I froze for a moment and almost turned around and left. This was not how I imagined this going down, and I knew that Evelyn's presence was going to make a bad situation a million times worse. Still, I had a timetable that I wanted to move on. I had friends I needed to notify, and wedding preparations to cancel, and the proverbial clock was ticking in the back of my head. When I entered the room, both Sarah and Evelyn looked up at me in acknowledgement, but the tirade of accusations never came. I just stared back, raising my eyes in question. The moment passed, and Evelyn went back to crying, Sarah back to comforting, and I let it awkwardly hang in the air for half a minute while I thought. It seemed that Marty hadn't mentioned my assistance in the uncovering of Evelyn's affair. I decided to play dumb. Not for any reason other than I wanted to see how Sarah reacted. I took a seat on a recliner, put down my laptop bag, and took my phone out of my pocket. I made it look like I was fidgeting with it, and then asked them what's going on. Evelyn just continued to cry, but Sarah looked at me and said, "Marty is divorcing Evie." Well, yes, I figured as much. I decided to push ahead with the obvious question. "What for?" asked her. Sarah stopped patting Evelyn's back for a moment and looked at me. I could almost see her face twist and contort. Imagine the look a 5-year-old makes when you tell them to eat their broccoli or finish their lima beans. Evelyn shot Sarah a look that I didn't need to be a sister to understand, and there was a pregnant pause until Sarah finally said, "She cheated on him." Now, I have to admit this response absolutely floored me. This was absolutely not what I was expecting. Sure, the more cynical readers here might think, well, the cat was out of the bag, so there's no point in hiding it. And yes, that's true. But it's also true that she could have just as easily feigned ignorance or even worded it another way, like, Marty accused Evie of cheating, instead of basically confirming it to my face. Maybe I'm being pedantic here, but it's part of my job to pay attention to not only what people say, but how they say it. Evelyn wasn't happy about this. She kind of crumpled into the couch a bit and did this strange combination of a sigh and sob at the same time. I wanted to press on, go for the gold, so to speak, but I must have stammered a bit. Sarah probably interpreted it as shock, and while she would have been right in a sense, just not how she assumed. "Did you know?" Sarah didn't say anything. She just nodded, her hand still rubbing her sister's shoulder. I didn't hesitate and asked for the obvious follow-up. "How long?" The answer came back a lot easier than I thought it would. 6 months. I was shocked by how easily she admitted to it. Evelyn was shocked as well. She smacked her sister's hand off her, and I think even Sarah was a little shocked at saying it out loud. I leaned back in the recliner. Time to tug the rest of that bandage clear off. "We're not getting married." There are 2 looks like stunned goats and a chorus of "what?" from both sisters. I stood up and repeated myself. "We're not getting married. I can't marry someone who would cover up adultery, especially not for 6 months. Sarah sprang off the couch and opened her arms. The body language was, "You can't be serious," but I just put my hands in front of myself. "I'm serious. I don't like this, not one bit. I don't like that you took part in this, and I can't get married to you with how I feel. It would be a mistake." Waterworks started immediately, and even Evelyn did that thing with her mouth that looks like a fish trying to suck air. There were wails from Sarah, accusations of not loving her, appeals to my sense of duty, to the loss of money, the inconvenience to all our friends, the embarrassment of it all. It was frankly nothing I hadn't already thought about, but it definitely felt different hearing Sarah say it through body-racking sobs. It was at this point I probably made a big mistake. Well, maybe not, because I have no idea how long Marty would have kept my involvement in everything off the books. But in an effort to convince Sarah of the finality of it all, I said, "Look, I already canceled the honeymoon. It's not happening. I knew it was a bomb the second it left my mouth, and the explosion was immediate. Evelyn, to her credit, had always been pretty quick on the uptake, which is probably how she had managed to fool her husband for so long. I could almost see the realization dawning on her when she put it all together with my appearance at the bar earlier in the evening. She screamed, "You son of a bitch," and flew across the room at me. Now, I'm not a huge guy, but I'm no slouch either, but the force that Evelyn flung herself at me had me staggering backwards, and I barely had enough time to get my hands up before she started raking my face with her fingernails. I almost lost the phone I still had in my hand, but still managed to push her away and say very loudly, "Evelyn, get off me. Sarah, get your sister under control." Evelyn made another lunge for me, but surprisingly, Sarah did exactly what I asked her to. She wrapped her arms around her sister's waist and held her in place. I looked at Evelyn and yelled, "Get out of here right now, or I am calling the police," holding my phone up for emphasis. Sarah asked both of us to calm down. She said to me, "Opie, she doesn't have anywhere to go right now. Marty took her car keys." That explained the lack of a car in the driveway, but I didn't care. I was 100% through with Evelyn, and I was going to make sure she knew it. I marched into my home office and locked the door and dialed the police. I told them I had been attacked by my fiancée's sister and had locked myself in my office, that I was bleeding from my face. Evelyn had scratched me pretty good along the inside of my left eye, and that my vision was blurry, and I feared for my life. I even told them that I had recorded the entire altercation on my phone. Just as I was finishing up my conversation, Sarah comes knocking on the door. "OP, please come out. We need to talk about this. And please, I love you. Don't do this. We don't need to do this." And even Evelyn is sorry. She wants to apologize. I'm pretty sure that last one was a lie, but Sarah was obviously losing her mind. I didn't answer her, and her attempts to cajole me out of the office ended probably right when the police showed up to our front door. I could hear Sarah talking to them, and I decided to come out. The cops were two males. One of them looked younger than me, maybe around Sarah's age, and the other one looked older and more annoyed about life in general. I introduced myself, pointed at Evelyn, stating that she attacked me, and offered to show the cops the recording I made. The younger one asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. He asked me again if I wanted to press charges. I said yes again. At this point, both cops looked at each other, and before the young cop could open his mouth again, I said, "Yes, damn it, I want to press charges. I have video evidence, and this is going to court, or else I'm going to call up your boss and ask him to come down and do it himself." I think they were pretty surprised that I knew his name. Not that we are friends or anything, but given my line of work, I spent plenty of time interfacing with local law enforcement, and I have met most of the brass or talked to them on the phone a couple of times in the last few years. Honestly, at this point, I was getting pretty hot under the collar, and while I get what these guys were thinking, I don't agree with it at all. Facts are facts. Sure, I might not be bleeding out on the floor, but Evelyn assaulted me in my own home, and I wanted her gone. Thankfully, this situation didn't immediately escalate, and the two officers handcuffed Evelyn and put her in the back of the patrol car. She was squealing and crying like some sort of hysterical person the entire time. Sarah wasn't much better. She just kept going, "No, please no," over and over again. At this point, the younger cop circled back and asked us if everything was okay here. I just told them I was going to bed. He asked Sarah again, and she didn't immediately answer, so he goes, "Is everything okay here, ma'am?" It was clear what he was fishing for. At this point, I really disliked this guy, but I bit my lip. Sarah finally realized that the cop was addressing her, and she just nodded at him. Obviously, the guy is not satisfied with this and starts to ask her again, at which point I interject and say, "If you want to go on a fishing expedition, you might want to do it over there on the lawn where my doorbell camera isn't recording you." I think at this point I had pushed my luck with this guy one too many times, but what could I do? I think I was probably about 30 seconds from getting the cuffs slapped on me until his partner came up and basically pulled him away. He was an older man, probably in his late 50s, and probably didn't want to process two arrests right at the beginning of a shift, especially when one of them was obviously going to be more trouble than it was worth. I'm pretty sure he talked him out of it, and they left, carrying Evelyn away and hopefully out of my life forever. At this point, I'm thinking about if I want to stay here or not. The fact that my parents live a couple of hours away, combined with the thought of about how poor I am going to be in the short term here, ruled out either their place or a hotel, so I just decided to sleep in the guest room. Sarah made some futile efforts to get me to engage with her in conversation or to sleep in our bed, but I just told her we'd talk tomorrow and then that I was tired and didn't want to be disturbed. Thankfully, she let me be, and I crashed hard, harder than I had in years. Which pretty much brings us up to speed to the last update. But dear friends of Reddit, let me tell you, this next day was by far the weirdest day of my life. To start with, I woke up at 11 a.m. Sarah was still home. She had cleaned the house from top to bottom. I mean, the floor sparkled, the toilet shined. I could lick the linoleum in the bathroom, and it'd probably be minty fresh. She had obviously been busy, but when she saw me, she sort of hovered out of immediate range, not quite engaging but looking like she wanted to say something. I get it. Last night was traumatic for everyone, and she was probably uncertain. Like, did I just cancel the wedding in the heat of the moment? Was I serious about this? Was I really angry? I took a deep breath and told her we needed to finish talking. She tried to sit next to me on the couch, and I thought about rebuffing her, but I didn't. We were not getting married, but I didn't need to act like I hated her, because, truthfully, I didn't. I was disappointed in her, decently disgusted by some of the things I had read in her text exchanges with her sister, but we were both hurting here, and I didn't want to make it any worse or escalate things to a point where life could get any more complicated than it already was. It took some more convincing on my part for Sarah to truly and fully believe the wedding was off. She was not taking it well. Hell, that's an understatement. She was a wreck. I think she was hyperventilating a few times. I was holding it together better, but obviously, not only was this my idea, I had also had longer to come to terms with it. Finally, she asked the serious question. What about us? I know I am going to get a lot of hate from people for this, especially the kind of Redditors that think every infraction in a relationship is grounds for nuking it from orbit. And indeed, one could even say that my calling off the wedding was like dropping a bomb on our 6-year partnership. But truthfully, I didn't have an answer for Sarah in that moment. I just didn't know, and I told her so. I said I read all those text messages, and it showed me a side of her that I didn't know existed, and that I wasn't certain about her, or our relationship anymore. I said I couldn't understand why she would go along with Evelyn putting down Marty and joining in, and even egging her on, and cheating on not only him but their daughter too. She just kept saying, I know it was wrong, I know. I asked her for an explanation, but she couldn't provide one. She just said that she got carried away and that she had to choose her sister. I told her that I thought a good sister was someone who kept you on the straight and narrow and didn't give you a free pass to be a terrible person. She agreed with me and said that she would do better, but that Evelyn had always been the boss when they were kids, and she was always the follower. I get this. I have an older sibling too, and while I'm a bit more independent, I also spent the last 18 years of my life with him, living on the other side of the